Yeah, I can hear you. I'm great, thank you. How are you? Indeed. Good. Okay, lovely. Perfect. Perfect. I don't think I've got one at the moment, but yeah, let me know because I go away on the 28th of July. So Canada. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. So maybe we can reconnect when I get back, and we can start again September. Lovely. Okay, lovely. Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. Okay. No worries. Hi, thanks, Anton. I'm Sarah Symes, and I'm a Brit, but I also had the privilege of spending a little bit of time in Silicon Valley a few years ago. I've spent the last 2 decades in HR leadership roles, mainly across high growth companies, so mostly sort of startup scale ups. And really, it's about enabling talent to create an inclusive culture for business success.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Louise Sophia. I am an HR consultant and I specialize in employer branding, employee experience, and also legal as I am training to be an employment solicitor. I have spent the last 10 years working in HR and everything that it encompasses, as well as holding my own startup. So I understand the challenges that you face and really try and approach HR as a talent strategy from the beginning, where you can really partner and design intentional workspaces. I have a keen interest in psychological safety in the workplace, and so a lot of my answers will always frame it: how can we create really psychologically safe workspaces that people want to work in? Thanks, Anton.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, ladies. Really appreciate that. What would you say, ladies, are your biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage hiring? By the way, I'm grateful you've joined us a few times, so don't worry about having to repeat what you might have said in the past, because as you've probably noticed, we tend to make the same mistakes over and over again. And also try not to use the same logic for both a do and a don't, if that's okay. So again, maybe we can start with Sarah, if that's all right, and then Louise. And if you feel there's more than one do and one don't, feel free to, if you think that's really important, feel free to drop those as well. Take it away, please, Sarah.
Hi, yeah. For me, I think it's very much about if you really understand what is the outcome that you want to achieve with your business. So right from the very beginning, not just what's the product, but what is it you're looking to solve, and what's the impact that you want to make on the world. If you're really clear on that, then everything else tends to come around that. You'll then know what kind of people that you're going to attract towards that goal, and then you'll also be able to think about what are the appropriate steps, and things will shift along the way. So definitely be flexible. But I think for me, it's really about getting clear on that right from the early stages. Over to you, Louise.
Thank you. So I would say make sure that you write things down as a point of reference. So even if you hire somebody at that early stage and you say, okay, I'm going to hire a developer, or I'm going to hire someone in marketing, make sure that you have written down and you understand what your expectations of that role are, so that they also have a very clear idea, as one person's understanding of what a role does and is expected to do may be different to someone else's. So write it down. Even if it's your first hire, get something on paper. And I would say something maybe to avoid doing, maybe try and think about diversity in your hiring. So it may be really tempting to just hire somebody who has the same skill set as you or has a lot of the same interest, but actually it's better if you have a complementary skill set. So if you're really great with the clients, you might need somebody who's better with the team, and try and think about how you're building a whole skill set of complementary things, as opposed to just grabbing somebody who thinks like you. Thanks, Anton.
Well, that's amazing, ladies. Thank you very much for that. We'll jump on to our first question that was sent in to us. But in the meantime, just before that, actually, rather, just a quick reminder to those of you that have just joined us. This is Startup Talent Q&A 161. We've been doing these for just over 4 years, where we seek to help startups with whatever questions you may have on your talent journey. And by the way, Louise, if you'd like to drop your LinkedIn URL in the chat, just in case anybody wants to reach out, you totally deserve it, both of you and your fellow panelists, because we've had about 280,000 people join us, and none of that would have happened without yourself. So really grateful for your help so far. On the other hand, for those of you that are tuning in via the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please remember that we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So if you do have any questions for us, please join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that is to go to our site, startup2scaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 161. With that, then you click join. It's a quick registration that gets you a link to your email address. And through that link, you can then join us directly here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can join us from anywhere, any platform or device, whether you're cooking lunch in Glasgow or changing baby nappies in Liverpool or walking your dog in Surrey. That's why we do this. And in terms of today's questions, they can be on anything to do with talent, whether it's finding, hiring, keeping, empowering the right people, maybe interviewing people, background checks, HR, practice, and a system and a process that works for you, maybe building that company culture, anything within that sphere, really. There are no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. If, however, your questions today are not on talent, please remember to save them for the other conversations we have. On Mondays, it's talent, as you can see today. But then on Tuesdays, it's product and tech. Wednesdays, growth. Thursdays, fundraising. Second Friday of each month, it's UK startup law. And third Friday of each month, it's UK startup finances. That all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can RSVP to any of them via our site. And actually, when you're on our site, you might also want to join our groups. We've got a community on WhatsApp with groups of founders, investors, operators, and all that. So there's a WhatsApp icon actually top and bottom of our site that you can click on. And by the way, just a quick reminder, we are then going to take a break during August. So our last Q&A for this month, I think, will be on the 24th of July. And now we'll go on to our first question. I'll read out the question and then perhaps we can start with Louise and then go on to Sarah. And ladies, the question is in the chat just in case you want to go through it as well. But I'll read it out loud for the live streams. I'm the co-founder of a pre-seed food tech startup in Southampton, where we design sustainable packaging solutions for the food industry. How can we create a cohesive company culture from the beginning, especially when our team is spread across multiple locations? And then he goes on to say, especially keen on tips as to how we could best integrate sustainability and innovation into our core values so that employees feel deeply connected to our mission. Quite a question. Okay, so number one, I guess, building that culture. And number two, how can they kind of instill within that culture certain values that are related to the business that they're in, i.e. being sustainable, but also innovation? We'll start with Louise, if that's okay, and then Sarah, please.
Great. I think a lot of the time when we think about how to connect people to a mission, especially if you're earlier on in the startup phases, then you can help them be part of that creation process. People will always feel more connected to something that they have been responsible for creating. So I would just take it directly to the team and say, this is what's important to us as a company. How do you all think we can do this? What are your ideas? And get them involved in building that process. And I think as startup founders or as leaders, sometimes we feel a little bit of pressure that we have to know everything. You don't. And in fact, sometimes by not knowing everything and telling the team what you do and don't know, you will build better integrity and they will trust you, because then they know what you say you know, you actually do. If sometimes you are open to saying, let's build this together. I'm open to everybody's ideas. I might not have all of the ideas. Let's collaborate and do them together. So I would definitely say get the team involved in that. And also make sure you make time for them to actually research some of that. You can, if you can't give them any budget for things, maybe you can give them a little bit of time where you could allow them to attend sustainability talks, innovative practices. Maybe everybody could join up and then come to a meeting once a week about something they've learned that week or that they've got from outside in the wider sphere, and do a bit of research themselves. Sarah?
Thanks, Louise. I was actually going to a little bit answer the earlier question that I didn't about what not to do, and it's very similar to what you've just shared. So thank you for that. I think similarly that often it's the leaders who come up with, for example, the values. And that's great, but they also mean something different to different people. And I think that's where you're taking a set of values, maybe just some words or a picture on a wall, to being something real and lived, and that really form part of not only your culture, but how people show up to work on a kind of a daily basis. And that's even more important when you've got an international environment that you've described in the question. So for me, really, a set of values are also tied to behaviors. So what behaviors do you want to see in the workplace? And I think if you involve everyone, as Louise suggested, and asking them, what does sustainability mean to you in terms of your daily role, in terms of, this organization that you're part of today? How do you see innovation being driven in the work that you're doing, and so on? Maybe just come up with a set of simple questions that you can ask to kind of draw out those answers. And I think my final point would be, just don't make it too general. I think we've all seen these kind of taglines and statements where you've got a general statement about sustainability, for example, or even innovation, and it's something you could have just plucked off the internet. It really needs to be much more inclusive to the goals that you are trying to achieve with your mission. So just make sure that you're as specific as you possibly can be, would be my final guidance. Thanks, Anton.
That is amazing, ladies. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Okay, I think we can now go on to a second question. Maybe just copy and paste it. So we've done that earlier. So if you'd like to go first on this one, then Sarah. So we'll just kind of change the rounds a little bit so that you both get to answer some questions first and some questions second. I'll just pop that here. Here we go. Right. So one of three co-founders of a pre-seed agri-tech startup in Sheffield, where we develop AI-driven crop management tools for small-scale farms. We're about to onboard a part-time data analyst to support our research. Given our limited budget, how can we create an efficient and effective onboarding process that ensures they understand our products and are equipped to start delivering value quickly? Plus, how can we integrate training on our specific data collection methods without overwhelming them, given the part-time nature of the role? Interesting. How would you go about it here, Sarah, if you were this founder?
Yeah, I think that the thing with onboarding is not to kind of hit people with too much too soon. If you think about the feeling that you have when you onboard to a new role, and also a new organization, a new team, for example, there's a lot going on there. So I think thinking about maybe doing something more bite-sized would be a great approach. What are maybe the top sort of 3 things that they really need to know right now from day one? You could record those perhaps on a video, and then send that to the individual, maybe even ahead of their start date, so they've got some time to kind of absorb and give them an open dialogue to ask questions. So you make sure that they really understand it, which makes it a little bit more two-way then, but it will certainly save you some time for that onboarding. So definitely consider what can you pre-board? Is there some information you can send them as well to read? People have different styles of learning, so the more that you can tackle different approaches as well, should mean that you hit the right spot there. And then I think from a training point of view, just think about maybe there's a piece each day for the first couple of weeks. Maybe you have an online a video call or something like that with different people in the business, to just go through their part with that individual. And again, always give them the opportunity to ask a few questions at the end to make sure that they really understand what's being shared. And then just regularly review. If you have a weekly check-in, see how they're doing. How's it going? What's going on for them, and do they have anything that they feel is missing right now? Because I think that's the key to onboarding. Is you can hit people with a load of information, but there might just be something that isn't landing, or maybe is missing for them. So making sure you check in regularly as well. But But I think just be patient, give them time, but definitely consider that pre-boarding piece. Okay, over to you, Louise.
Great. I agree with everything that Sarah said. I think breaking it down to bite size is really important. And also asking them what kind of learner they are and how they like to do that. Because you could prepare something amazing with all the text in the world and a huge document of all the things because it works for one person, and somebody else might immediately just feel completely disconnected by that. So some people will want lots of context, other people will want to learn exactly on the job and as they go. So it's really important in that preparation stage to ascertain what might work for that particular individual. Also try and avoid using your specific company jargon too soon, or make sure they have a kind of keywords coding or something. If you use very specific terms in your organization, that might add to the overwhelm if they don't actually understand what's being said. Assigning a single point of contact can be really useful so that they don't feel overwhelmed about who they're supposed to go to with questions, like a sort of buddy or mentor. And again, the calls that they can refer back to is really useful with those recordings. But sometimes I would also recommend, where possible, even if it can be a bit tiresome in an organization where there's lots of new starters, if you have that live call with them, often just even that 10 minutes of just getting on a live call and connecting with somebody can really help the longevity of them feeling connected to the organization, rather than them watching some standard videos that have been sitting in the drive for ages, which can feel a bit demotivating as like a lot of work to do. The last thing I would say on this is I personally enjoy a bit of a progress bar, such as these are the different things that you will learn in the upcoming weeks. This is the key 5 things that we need to learn to hit milestones on onboarding. So I personally love to see sort of a progress of, okay, these are the different milestones I'm going to hit, these are the expectations for the onboarding, and this is what I'm going to cover. And then you can kind of tackle it bite size by bite size, but at least they can see the whole journey in front of them and know kind of what's expected of them. But again, it's really down to the individual. The more you can personalize that process to them, the better chance you'll have of them feeling connected to the organization and settling in nicely. Thanks, Anton.
Thank you very much, ladies. That was brilliant. The only thing I could add to that amazing stuff that you both gave us is one of the first and most important things I've learned. This is going way back to when I was doing recruitment agency work, is that onboarding starts with literally the role being approved. I pretty much do the searching with the right hand and onboarding with the left hand. What I mean by that is that from the word go, you can do things in a certain way where you're actually onboarding and telling people about your organization and how you do things. You may even be able to do that by encouraging them to maybe see a video during that hiring process or searching process for that matter, or maybe to do some other research and maybe even reach out to people that already have worked with you and so on. Because guess what? There's 2 things that will happen there. One, they'll get to know your company better. And 2, you can actually quite often tell the ones that do the research and really go beyond, what's expected, let's just say, or beyond the minimum. Often these people are actually a better fit to your business. But you can definitely do things in a way so that during that entire hiring process, they are going through some form of onboarding. Right, here, I'll put another question in the chat. I'll read it out loud for the live streams. Please don't be shy if you're on the live streams or here on our Microsoft Teams. If you're on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So please don't bother with put in whatever comment there, or maybe send in us messages as you often do. But instead, please simply go to startup2scaleup.club, which is our site. You find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 161. We're here with 2 amazing ladies to help startups with your talent journey. They've been there and done it for more than one company. So maybe you can get some decent value. But in order to do that, you need to be here with us on our Microsoft Teams call. It's an audio-only chat. And once you go to our website, startup2scaleup.club, Find today's session, Startup Talent Q&A 161. Click join. A quick registration will get you a link to your email address, and through that link, you can join us. For those of you that are here on Microsoft Teams, perhaps you might want to either share this or maybe put a link on your LinkedIn and tag somebody who you think may benefit from being here. And if you've got any questions, please don't be shy. Simply put it in the chat now, and I'll give you the mic so that you can ask the team. Now, I'll read this out, and if Louise, if you'd like to go first, and then Sarah, please. So, I've recently joined as co-founder of a seed stage food tech startup in Leicester that creates plant-based ready meals. We're planning to hire overseas customer support contractors to assist with scaling operations. And I want to integrate an HR technology solution to manage contractor onboarding and payroll. What affordable platforms could help us efficiently manage overseas hires whilst ensuring compliance with different tax regulations? Also, how can we create a system for tracking contractor performance, enabling us to maintain quality support as we scale? Oh boy, this is quite a mouthful, and quite a few questions within that. Where would you start, and how would you go about it, Louise?
Great, thanks, Anton. In order to answer this fully, I would need a bit more information, specifically thinking about, okay, well, what are you trying to
I hear
integrate
you.
it with, for example? So I would want to know, what are you trying to integrate it with to see what options you have available to you? And then with different tax regulations, it depends on what overseas countries you're looking at to see how we can advise you on that. So without that information, what I would say is ask yourself, what systems do you use right now that you need it to integrate with? I personally have existing relationships with Employment Hero and Bright HR. So if anybody wants to reach out and talk about those platforms and see what options they have available to them, then I can definitely support you through that. But in terms of knowing what you need, first of all, you need to actually even ask any HR tech stack that you're looking at, does it do the basic features that you need? And that's going to depend on what countries you want to hire from. Do they even support payroll in those countries? So have a look at that first. And then when it comes to choosing your platforms, some of them offer options which are sort of monthly, some are per employee. So depending, a lot of these, I know we've mentioned here before that a lot of these HR tech places are themselves sort of startups, and they are also very willing to negotiate. So if they do give you a rate on, it might be per employee or per month, do go back to them and say, well, listen, I was more thinking this, and try and negotiate with them, and they can create a package tailored to you and your needs. Some of them do have the performance options in there as well. So the main thing I would say in terms of the performance that you want to have a look at, make sure that you have very specific feedback. But before you even get into feedback, make sure you have very specific KPIs. So what I mean is, you want to look at response time. You want to look at the customer ratings. You want to make sure that your expectations are mapped down on paper of what you expect this person to respond to a customer in a certain way, or anything like that, to give a standardization to measure them against a benchmark, so to speak. So have a think about what that might look like and what tasks you might like them to do. I have been talking for too long, so I'm going to hand over to Sarah. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks. I agree. I would need a little bit more information as well. So I'm just going to maybe give a few more pointers and general advice. You're using the word contractors and payroll. So to me, immediately, I'm thinking, okay, so are you actually hiring people on some kind of fixed term contract, and then you want to pay them directly, in which case, have you actually set up, a legal entity in the location that you're looking to hire in overseas? If you haven't, are you considering doing that through a third party? And there's so many different options that you could explore there. My recommendation would be probably to go the third party route initially, because it will enable you to scale. It also would take away from the payroll and the tax implications. But I think the main question for me is, are you already set up to hire people overseas? Because if you're not, one thing to be aware of is you could risk creating a permanent establishment in that country, and then you're subject to, you know, corporate taxation and multiple other things. So having done this many times, even larger companies tend to use a third party initially, and then you can always transition people later. So just an option to consider. If you're going to do that, there's a number out there for sure. Deal's probably the one that I've used and know the most. Also consider getting some legal advice. So based on some of the things that I'm saying here and the questions we're asking, is just make sure that you've got the right advice on how you want to set things up, that you've got the right, you know, location and the right contract set up, etc., to hire people as well in that jurisdiction. This kind of stuff is not simple. So international expansion is really exciting. But we just want to make sure that you're getting the right support. And there is a new platform for that, a company called Centuro Global, and they actually have a kind of a one-stop shop for all of that sort of legal, immigration, and so on advice. So worth having a look at that, but I haven't personally used them. I've just come across them more recently in my fractional work. So hopefully that's given you a few pointers. I've talked a long time too, but I think it's because this is a big area. So definitely make sure you get the right support. Thanks, Anton.
Absolutely is, and it can be quite tricky too. Thank you very much for that, ladies. Really appreciate it. I'm not even going to attempt to add anything. One, because it'd be nice if you were here for us to maybe go into a bit more detail and understand your situation better. So perhaps we can go on to another question. This is from a co-founder of a pre-seed medtech startup in Durham, where we develop mobile health diagnostics tools for remote communities. I'm concerned about employee well-being given our intensive project timelines. We're considering hiring a part-time well-being advisor to support our team, but we need to be mindful of cost. What affordable wellness programs could this advisor help us implement that address stress and workload management? Additionally, how can we structure their role, to ensure they're accessible to both our remote and in-office employees, enhancing their impact across the team? Oh my Lord, where do I start? I'm glad you thought of finding a way to help your employees with their well-being, but I really don't think anybody at Pre-Seed has the luxury to hire a well-being expert, and I would put my resources elsewhere. Maybe you can find somebody who's in HR and he or she covers a few things and also knows about well-being. Let's see what the lady's going to say. Shall we start with Sarah, if that's okay? And then Louise, please.
Hi. Yes, I agree with you, Anton. I think it's really admirable that you're already thinking about this. And for me, I think that's the first step. And the fact that you're aware and conscious that you might be putting people under this kind of pressure. So I think keep communications clear, transparent, frequent. Make sure people know what's going on, and feel connected, and that they've got the opportunity to discuss any concerns or problems that they have. And then there are a lot of really good apps out there as well that you could just point people to. I know Headspace is one I've used extensively in the past, but there's many more new ones now coming along as well, which are recommended for well-being. So I think, by all means, do a bit of research on that, and then maybe you can point people in that direction. But maybe you could offer a very small stipend for them to have their subscription to something like that, and that wouldn't cost very much. You would do it as sort of like a benefit. Or if you are in any kind of position to offer a health benefit, then they tend to offer their own resources. But maybe that's something that you could build towards later down the line. That would be my suggestion. Thanks, Anton.
I agree with Sarah that I think the fact that you're even asking or thinking about this is amazing, and means you're probably already taking steps to create a better environment during what is usually a lot of burnout, a lot of chaos. So the first thing before even looking at a wellness advisor or anything like that, I would be considering how are your systems set up. Do you have actual overwhelm and actual an overload of tasks, or is it more just a feeling that needs to be broken down? Sometimes when I was running startups, people had an emotional overwhelm, and actually when we looked at the systems that they were working in were chaotic and messy. When you actually help people manage their task lists and have a look at, okay, write everything down, let's start using things like a RASI or a task management system, so that we can actually see very clearly what everybody has to do every day, so it's not walking into work virtually or whatever with this overwhelming feeling of things to do. Have very clear task tracking and understand what is priority, what is urgent, what can be pushed, for example. And I would start by having a look yourself, especially even if you want a wellbeing advisor, if you wanted to kind of map out what that might actually look like. Well, have a look at sort of 5 pillars. You want to look at safety. So that's sort of their psychological safety and the social aspect of being in the workplace. How are people talking to each other? How can you make that better? How does that sort of feel? What kind of language are people using with each other? Their space and their physical comfort as well. Have you had maybe ergonomics design? Have you seen maybe are people using the right chairs? Maybe something, different desk chairs, and that can help their physical comfort if they're doing a lot of laptop work, for example. Looking at their goals, have you offered a sort of progression and career development for them so that they can actually see where they're going and they're not just spinning in this chaos? Looking at autonomy in their day-to-day work lives. Do they have space that's away from meetings that they can work on something that really excites them and that makes them feel passionate to reduce some of that burnout and make it passion? And looking at that emotional support, which you're doing here, and thinking, okay, how are people feeling? How are we checking in with them? So definitely, like Sarah said, a lot of the benefit programs, if you get like a private insurance, they will have things like therapy, for example, well-being lines that people can call, which can be really helpful, subsidized gym memberships, that sort of thing. So if you were really keen on having a well-being advisor, first I would have a look yourself. Is there anything you yourself can have a look at your internal systems and your business process, rather than getting a wellness advisor and might actually just be putting sort of a plaster over the main issue, and make sure that your company is really as smooth and tight as it can be in terms of systems and tracking and everything's great. But if there is physically just too much work to be done and people are burning out, have a look at some of those options then, like we mentioned about that sort of 5 pillar, which I'll write down at the end of the call as well. So with your well-being advisor, I wouldn't look to take anybody on permanently. I would look to get a consultant to maybe do a couple of hours with you, assess your company in depth. As Anton said, maybe that could be an HR consultant like one of us, or maybe if you want a specific wellness advisor, get them to give you a couple of quotes and see what it includes, okay? But just remember, like we said, there's actually a lot that you can do yourself first before you get to that stage. So, but well done. I applaud you for thinking about it and keeping it at the forefront of the company, because it's really, really important. Thanks, Anton.
Thank you very much for that, ladies. That's amazing. That is absolutely brilliant stuff. Okay, let me post another question that we received. Although it is kind of getting a bit boring, that's can't even be bothered to come and join us live. But nevertheless, is by the way, we've only got 21 minutes to go. If any of you want to ask us any questions, please don't leave it for last second, because often when that happens, we run out of time. And we're here to help founders with whatever questions you have on talent, whether you want to know how and where to find the right people, perhaps how to interview them, how to hire them, how to pay them, how to empower them and train them to be the best that they can be, and most importantly, how to make sure that they are productive and successful and they stay with you. Any such questions, all you have to do is drop them in the chat. We then give you the mic and the floor is yours, and you can ask our panelists. For those of you that are on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please remember that we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So you'd have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only. Quickest way to do that is go to our website, startup2scaleup.club. You click on join. When you find Startup Talent Q&A 161, which is our session today, that will get you a quick registration, which will follow with a link to your email. And through that link, you can join our audio only call here on Microsoft Teams. Now, let's move on to the next question. A founder of a seed stage agri-tech startup in London, where we provide data-driven solutions for small farms. We're hiring a full-time product manager, but we're concerned about potential conflicts as the role will involve working with both internal and external stakeholders. How can we set clear expectations and resolve conflicts effectively, especially when managing remote teams? This is quite a question because you're about to hire somebody. I'm assuming, because you haven't stated otherwise, but I'm assuming you don't really know them, but straight away you think there's going to be a conflict. And I think there's something deeper here, either um, on that person, or maybe because there are things that are fundamentally wrong with the way your startup is run so far. Personally, I would focus on that, but I'd love to hear what the lady's got to say. I think we started, I can't remember, did we start with Sarah last time um, or
Yes.
Louisa? We did. Okay, so Louise this time then, please.
Thank you. I imagine what's happening here, if I've understood correctly, that you have internal stakeholders and external, and you're hoping that this product manager might help bridge the gap between the external and the internal stakeholders, maybe not feeling so connected. That sometimes can happen in startups. So I would say for this person, make sure that they are aware of what your expectations are for the role, and be transparent about, okay, well, I have this issue or these conflicts, and I'm kind of bringing you in here because I want us to talk about how we can connect these teams together and how we can make sure that conflict is resolved. It's okay to have a small amount of conflict in an organization, because you need to have positive conflict where ideas are being brought to the table and people have different ways of working, which is really great for your organization to have diversity and ways of thinking. So what you want to do is be able to capitalize on that and make sure it feels like a safe space for everybody to contribute, and not have their ideas be pushed aside or turned into negative conflict where relationships break down. So one clear way of doing that is making sure that this person understands what you expect their role to look like, maybe in the first sort of month or 90 days. And also ensure that between all the teams, there is that sort of cohesion where people understand each other's challenges. So by doing that, I would first make sure that nobody's working in silos and alone. I would make sure that we're having, okay, a shared task board where we can all see the projects on all the boards and everybody can see what everybody's working on. So I can understand your challenges and you can understand mine, and that we know exactly what each other's working on. And also have some clear sort of, I don't really want to use the word hierarchy, but structure where they understand who answers to who on what topics. So if tech decisions ultimately go with the tech advisor, for example, and maybe something on more a timeline issue might go to more operations, that's one thing. But make sure that people understand kind of who ultimately reports to who in the organization, but also so that they all feel there's this shared responsibility, especially when teams are remote. Get on together and look at the shared task board to see what everyone's working on, and ensure that the catch-ups are sort of predictable. So okay, we're going to have a catch-up at this time, maybe once a week, and try not to make those meetings really long where people just stop listening and tune out, but short, productive. How can we help each other? What challenges are you facing? And if you create a culture where everybody wants to help what the other person is doing, what can I help you to unblock that? Or what do you need from me? Then people will start to think, oh, okay, well, I'm going to help this person, they're going to help me. And then people start to sort of weave and weave together. And I would just be very careful on any feedback is very intentional. So again, thinking about the emotional impact that the feedback is going to have. What I mean by that is keeping things factual, as opposed to, well, I don't think so and so is very good. Well, your opinion doesn't really matter. What we need is to have factual and say, well, we all decided we were going to do this, so what's happened here and why hasn't it happened, and work together to solve any of those issues, rather than pointing blame and making things relationship based. Sarah, over to you.
Okay, well, all of the above. Thanks, Lucy. I was actually going to suggest a slightly different aspect of this, because I think absolutely I agree with all of the things you've said, and I think it comes from, you have to assume good intent, assume you've got the right position and the right person, and you want to set them up for success. So definitely that communication and being clear on expectations early on is super important, and having some trust in that individual as well. However, for everything else, there's always the contract. And I think I haven't obviously seen your contract. We can't ask you questions, but I would just make sure that you have a clause in there around potential conflicts of interest, just in case there's other things that they might be doing, maybe in their own life as well. That's a fairly standard clause that's in most contracts. So if you haven't got one, you should be able to do a quick internet search to find some suitable wording there. Online, and then also making sure that you have kind of confidentiality obligations in there as well. So if you're concerned that they're going out and then talking about the technology, and maybe somehow a competitor gets hold of that, how would you handle that scenario? So perhaps just thinking through what are some of the scenarios that you're concerned about, and how might you mitigate those by being a little bit more upfront. And this also helps to set those expectations with that individual, because they're going to review that, as part of their offer, and understand the expectations from the start, and maybe ask you questions if they're not clear. So those are the things that I'd be really careful about. And on the product side, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that you've got some protection for your IP already in there. But again, if not, or if you think it might not be sufficient, it's worth just getting that reviewed. So another one for the lawyers potentially. It sounds expensive, but actually it might only be a couple of hours of someone's time just to review your existing contract and make sure that you're covering those scenarios that I've just outlined. Thanks, Anton.
On fire today, ladies. Thank you very much. That is brilliant, both of you. Really appreciate it. We are now 12 minutes away, so I think we'll go with one more question from the people that sent them in. And if there are no live questions, then maybe we can wrap it up. I think this time it would be Sarah to start, if that's okay. I'll read it out loud, but the question is in the chat.
Sure.
As the founder of a seed stage software startup in Nottingham that builds productivity tools for teams, we're about to hire several new employees. What are the key components to consider when setting up payroll for both full-time employees and contractors, especially as we begin scaling internationally? Personally, I would definitely find somebody to do this for you. You don't have to hire them full-time. You don't have to hire them for whatever length of periods. You can literally hire them on a daily basis and find somebody. I would look to find somebody who's done this by using the cheapest possible tools out there, but you're definitely going to need tools. Let's hear what Sarah's got to say on this, and then Louise, please. What would you do here, and what are the tips you'd give this person to get this going?
Yeah, so I completely agree with you, Anton. I'm not a payroll expert either, would never claim to be. So it is a specific area, and things change, right, all the time, whether it's about tax or maybe some other aspects of compliance. So really, it's making sure that you're compliant, whether that's through the tech that you're using, or consider using a third party who has a clear contract that will, take care of that compliance responsibility for you as well. But some internal things to think about once you've thought about how to actually manage the payroll itself are, I think the key one for me that often happens with startups and scale-ups, it tends to fall off the wagon a little bit, is holiday tracking. Really make sure that you've got a way to track holidays from the get-go. Because it's going to be so much easier then to make sure that you're calculating any accruals and the holiday pay as you move forward. And obviously, if someone's part-time or on a contract, that might look different. So just making sure you're really clear, what holiday do you offer, and then how are you actually tracking that as time moves on. Same thing goes for sick pay, and sick leave. Making sure that you've got a process for finding out if people are taking sick leave, and then making sure that that's tracked as well. So again, you can comply with all of the statutory sick pay elements that you need to comply with. That's just from a UK perspective. If you're considering longer term, potentially branching out as well, again, just going back to that recommendation to have something that's going to be scalable for you as your company scales as well. Okay, over to you, Lucy.
Thanks, Sarah. So looking at some of these other areas we mentioned before about misclassifying contractors. So I'd be really careful when you're talking about payroll if you're hiring people abroad. If they are contractors, don't misclassify them and treat them as employees. Some people think it's a clever loophole they found where they will take the the contractor and treat them as a full-time employee and just not pay any of their benefits or their insurance or anything. You can get massive fines for doing this. So you do need to make sure that you are treating them as a contractor. And that means things like even trying to dictate what hours they work or what schedule they have. You can get in a lot of hot water. So make sure you are very clear on the difference between if they are an external contractor or if they're an employee on your payroll. Can be really, really important. There are different tax reporting rules in different countries. So even if you've kind of understood the UK payroll, make sure you've also understood the liabilities or responsibilities you may have in the country that you're hiring that person. Even if your contract is in the UK, if there is a dispute, then you have to be careful, of course, whatever their country is as well. There are employers of record. I think Deal we mentioned earlier. I know I've mentioned Employment Hero, who they will hire the person legally for you and they will run the payroll and all the taxes for you. So it is worth reaching out to a third party entity, as Sarah said, because it means you can then show you've done your due diligence should something happen. 100% agree on the holiday, making sure that you are tracking that as well. I personally would say once you think that you've set up all of your payroll and how you want to do it, I would go and get a payroll specialist to check it for you. It is so worth just that couple of hundred that you might spend just having someone check it and make sure you've got it set up. There are huge fines and compliance issues, especially things like if you accidentally paid them 2 days late because you set it up in QuickBooks and QuickBooks had a delay. And if they don't receive it because there's 2 more days delay because of their country, if they receive their pay late or it doesn't match the date you said you were going to pay them, you can have a big dispute on your hands if their bills or their mortgage or something bounces and potentially be liable for whatever compliance piece is there. So really understand that payroll is a very, very serious compliance piece of your business and you need to have the absolute maximum attention. It's not something just extra that you can quickly do at the end. You really do need to get it set up and set it up well. If you can automate some of it, that's even more brilliant, because then once you've got it set up, you know it's been checked, a payroll specialist looked over it for you, it's great, then that's it, you're done. You're going to have your reporting automatically sent to HMRC, people are going to get paid on time. Just make sure that you make a note, like we said there, on your responsibilities, and do regular reviews. Like Sarah says, if you don't, these things change constantly. So you must set time in your diary, stick it in your calendar now. Right, in 2 months, I'm going to double check and see what those laws are. See if you can sign up to a magazine or you can get newsletters coming out, or follow people like us on LinkedIn, and we will tell you when a lot of those changes are happening so you can be on top of it, because the law changes constantly. Thanks, Anton.
Well, thank you very much, ladies, and I can guarantee whoever's listening live, whether here or on the live streams, that just this advice today would have cost you hundreds, if not thousands of pounds out there. So if you have found it valuable, please share the news, tell other people. We've unfortunately had to change 3 platforms within about 6 months. So I guess we need all the help we can get to spread the news. But if you have found it helpful, please feel free to do so, because the more the merrier. Now, ladies, we are 5 minutes away from wrapping this up. So perhaps some good ideas in terms of parting words that you may have for us. Would really appreciate them. Perhaps we can start with Sarah, who joined us first, and then Louise, please.
Sure, thanks, Anton. It's been really encouraging today to hear that the questions, the innovation that's going out in the market. and particularly what people are thinking about, right? They're thinking about, people's well-being. I was really struck by that one. And I think for me, it's really thinking about that sustainable aspect of your business. So many startups start with a great idea and it's very personal to that founder, and what they want to create. And then they maybe get a small group together of like-minded individuals, which is always phenomenal. But if you can really also think about that sustainability piece, not just in terms of the environment aspects, but actually of your people, how can you bring them on board? How can you think about how things are going to evolve and change, and make sure that they feel supported? So yeah, I'm just really encouraged by all of that, and some great initiatives out there, and don't be afraid to ask for help. You don't have to do it all on your own. Thanks, Anton.
Me next. Yeah, I've really enjoyed today as well. Actually, it's been really good. It's really nice to see what people are thinking of. I would say with legal and compliance, as we have spoken about that today, don't leave it to the last thing. It can be tempting. It's just something else on your list to do. Really get in front of it, and have a look through what are my legal obligations as a business owner before I hire someone, and see what those are. And also, I would make sure with your people who are coming on board, in order to make them feel part of the mission, it can be very tempting when you're so busy just to sort of throw orders out at them and just get them doing things that you feel, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, I need someone else to take over this task list. Take the time to find out what excites them. Sometimes, especially during that early stage of hiring, you might find out that you've hired a couple of great people, and actually maybe 3 months in, you might all decide, actually, you're great with clients and you're great with teams. Let's just swap roles. Let's swap over. What are we doing? And play to each other's strengths and weaknesses now that you are actually in that environment, and do regular checks on, okay, where are we with everybody? Are we all maximizing our skill sets, and really work together as a team and figure out what motivates them so you can help them feel connected to your mission? I think is really important. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Just another thing with your startup, make sure you document everything, put it down on paper, everything, all conversations, all feedback, job descriptions, whatever. Just document everything so you have a point of reference in case you need it later. Thanks, Anton.
Here. Well, thank you very much to both of you, ladies. I really appreciate your time and input today. As far as my parting words, just remember the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime, and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. I guess a quick reminder, or two reminders. One, we run six regular sessions. Mondays talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising. Second Friday of each month is UK startup law, and third Friday of each month it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site startup2scaleup.club. Actually, when you go to our site, you may also want to join our WhatsApp community. We've got some amazing groups of founders, investors, and operators where you can engage peer to peer. Actually, there's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of our site. You should see a WhatsApp icon there, and through that icon, you can click to join us. On the other hand, hopefully, you will be able to join us tomorrow for Startup Product and Tech Q&A. We've got some amazing techies and product leaders who've been there and done it. And if you'd like to do that, simply go to our site, look for tomorrow's session, click join, quick registration, and that will get you a link to your email that you can join. For those of you that joined via our live streams today, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, we are thankful that you did, but unfortunately, we can't monitor your questions there. And therefore, if you do want to get some really golden advice, you will want to join us here live on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can join from anywhere via any platform or device. Have a great afternoon and a brilliant rest of the week. Thank you all again, and God bless you. Bye-bye for now.